Hello everybody, welcome to the tutorial about the SEPPmail API Powershell module. My name is Roman Stadelmeier. I'm product manager at SEPPmail and also channel and sales manager in Austria. In my spare time, I'm running the Powershell user group in Austria, and Microsoft has awarded me with the MVP award for the 5th time meanwhile. So in this session, we're going to cover 3 topics. The first one is we're going to introduce you to the Powershell module itself, what it does and how its architecture works. The second step is if you're starting up with a SEPPmail 12.1 and want to use the module, I'm going to show you the setup steps and the first baby steps to get up to speed. And then some usage examples, and I want to say that we will provide more of these examples later on, but I guess with this video you're at a level that you can continue on your own. So the PowerShell module is built in a way that we run multiple platforms, so you can install it not only on Windows PowerShell 5.1, which is not actively developed any further from Microsoft. The new platform, independent, is PowerShell Core. So you can run it on both Windows or Core. And if you're using PowerShell Core, you have the choice between the Windows operating system, Linux, the supported ones for sure, and macOS. So as the module itself is just a wrapper around an API, we use mostly the invoke REST method call, and so it's easy to transport it to the multiple platforms. What we recommend is running it on PS Core, Windows, Linux, or macOS. So to understand a little bit better how the architecture of the module works is that you have a SEPPmail on the one hand, you have your notebook or server or an automation system on the other hand. Around the SEPPmail is an API now, and this API provides you with details about users and all that stuff, so you can talk to your SEPPmail programmatically. The default port of the API is 8441, but you can change it to anything else you want. And we communicate with this port via an encrypted tunnel secured by a certificate. You can use the API with a self-signed certificate, but then you have to switch on the skip certificate check parameter, which I will show you in a minute. The module itself is one piece, but you need 2 other modules installed, and these are 2 Microsoft modules, which are Secret Management and Secret Store. The reason why we're doing this, or why they are necessary, is because we want to avoid that you store secret keys or other secret information or credentials in local files. And with these 2 modules provided by Microsoft, you can store your secret information with port numbers, credentials, hostname, and so on in a secret place on your disk. So, configuration storage, as said, we need to store hostname, the fact if it's a valid certificate, the API port, and most importantly, the API key and the secret in a secret place. And we don't want you to store this unencrypted, so we use these 2 modules, Secret Management and Secret Store. And the nice thing about that is that this configuration, or this, let's say, this architecture, supports multiple configurations. So let's say you have a demo, a test, and a production environment. You can easily switch between those, so you can develop your script in your test environment and then just switch the configuration and run it in production. Or you can have, if you're an MSP or a cloud provider, you can store the configurations of your customers and then switch between them and run the script on multiple machines very easily. All configurations are per default and mandatory stored in so-called secret vaults. So the vault is by default secured by a password You can switch this off, but this is something you have to decide on your own, how you want to secure your environment. Yeah, so the whole configuration and configuration management is handled by the SEPPmail API module, so you don't need to understand secret management or secret store. It's just that you know it's below, it's on the underlying technology, and the whole management about the configurations is done by the SEPPmail module. Okay, so for installation and setup, I will stop showing you slides now and continue with a live demo. So you see a VS Code implementation here. And before we go to this, I'm going to show you my test and demo SEPPmail. So this is an RC16, which is one of the latest, which is actually the latest release candidate. When this video is out, it will most likely be already the release version. So to manage your API keys, you go to System, Advanced View, and in the Advanced View, you have the REST API area here. Important is that you switch it on, so it should be enabled, and you have a port. By default, it's, as said, 8441. You can change it to whatever you want. I have a demo key here already, but I'm gonna create another one. So if you want to create your own key, you give it a display name. I say this is my YouTube demo key, and you could use your own one, your own API token. We highly recommend you simply click on the generate button here, because this generates a pretty long string with a random secret. And then you can select which modules, which pieces of the API are accessible. You could do everything, or just statistics, or maybe if you're a service desk, maybe just resetting webmail accounts, you can do this. And you maybe want to select all tenants, all customers, or you can select particular customers, and we will call them tenants in the future with this selection box here. Let's make an MSP one. We add this key to the configuration, so it's actively stored. And if you scroll down now, you see the key here. Yeah. Okay, so we need, from the key to use it, we need those two values. I'll leave the screen open and to create the credential object. Okay, for our machine where we want to talk to the API, I have some example scripts prepared. I'm not using Windows here, just for demonstration purposes, I'm using Linux, so the Windows for Linux environment. So if you do a uname all, you see this is a Linux box, this is Ubuntu running on Microsoft, and I have installed PowerShell here. So we have a PowerShell environment now inside Linux, and if we do PS version, we see, well, this is shown here already, 7.1.4. Okay, so let's clear screen and do the first steps. First thing, we need to install all the modules. So either you type it in or you select it and press F8. So we are installing the necessary modules in the correct order. Okay, if you want to understand or see if the modules are on your machine, you can do get module. And for people which are not that experienced in PowerShell, don't forget to use the list available parameter for the get module, because otherwise you will not see the module because it's not loaded in memory. So without this parameter, it's not shown because it's only on the disk. If we do import module SEPPmail API, it is sometimes not working. I don't know why, but just do it again and it will work immediately. And if we do now get module is it's installed and it's in memory. If we just want to see which modules are necessary, we now see those are active in memory. Great. So next step is we want to create a configuration to access our SEPPmail machine. First step is we need to create a credential object. And the credential object contains of the username, which is the API key, and the secret, which is the API password. So we run this line here, press F8, and it asks me for the user. So I'm picking the API token and paste this one here, and I pick the API secret and paste it here. Great, so now we have a demo credential object with consists of username and password. Next step is we create a so-called SMA configuration. Why SMA? All the commands which are packed inside the module for SEPPmail API have the prefix SMA, so you know exactly this is a SEPPmail API commandlet. So we call our configuration demo, and we have to declare a host, and we have to declare a credential. There are more parameters. We could declare a port, we could define the API version, and we could tell the configuration to skip or not skip the certificate check. These parameters have default values, so if this is all default, we don't need to declare them. So simply create this configuration. Now we have the first configuration set. And that's very important now, so please remember this, if you do a get SMA configuration, it will tell you that there is no active SEPPmail configuration found because we have one stored, but it's not active. If you do a list here, you also get an error, and that's because it's neither a default configuration nor is it active. We're probably going to fix this in the future, but we wanted to be very close with the release of the SEPPmail appliance, so this can be fixed pretty easily with these two commands here. So we set an SMA configuration as default and as active. And after we do that, and I just clear screen to make this more and easily visible, if I do a get SMA configuration list now, we see we have a configuration, we see the name, the username, the host, port, and if it's active and default. What means active and default? Default means if you run a new PowerShell session and import a module, it checks if there is a default configuration in the system and takes it immediately. So you should set the most used SEPPmail appliance default. Active means the one which is currently used. So you could have multiple and could switch in between them, but just setting them active. One note on this line here, as this is a demo environment and I have tried this before, I have, let's say, some pieces of the latest secret vault configuration still here. If you're installing secret vault, secret management and secret store for the very first time, it will by default configure secret store with a password. So you need to add a password to access anything inside a secret vault. You can change that with this command called set secret store configuration authentication none. So you only can access this with your user account. So if you log in, the secret vault is open to you. Anybody else on this machine can't see it. So this is a little bit less configuration and a little less security, but for automating access to your SEPPmail, it makes sense. Okay, so we now have one configuration. We can also change configuration values with this set SMA configuration command here. So for example, if I have chosen a different port, I could change that with this command. And if we do a get SMA configuration list, you see that it's changed. If you have a self-signed certificate on your SEPPmail, which is the default without any changes on certificates, and you want to access it, you need to skip certificate check, which can be done with this command. When we see our configuration now, we have a different port and we have skip certificate check set to true. One last note on the API version. For now, this is always version 1. Okay. The last note on the setup, if you have multiple configurations, you simply do the same steps as with the first one. You create a credential object. I just type in anything now, it's for demo purposes, and we create the configuration called test. And if you go to your configuration list, you have two machines now, your demo and your test, and you see demo is true and default and test is both false. Now we are setting the test environment as active. Now is the demo machine here is the default configuration. So if you run a new session in PowerShell in the loader module, demo will be used. But for now, we use the test configuration called here, defined here with the active. So we also could do a third one called prod, and we could use the same credentials. Just for example, maybe this is not the best idea in terms of security, but maybe if you have multiple test environments or a demo in the test, the same API key makes sense. So now we have 3 environments and they are stored in the system even if you exit PowerShell. So if I leave the session now, I'm back in Linux, so there is no PowerShell stuff, no PS version table. This is Linux. If I again go into my PowerShell session and import the module, and we're going to fix that also soon, just excuse this, and we do a get SMA configuration. We again see our 3 configurations and the default one here and the active one here. So I hope this gave you a good introduction into the configuration management. And now we're going to really do some communication with our SEPPmail. I'm just checking if the SEPPmail is still alive and if it's not logged off. Yeah, by the way, if you want to know more about secret management and secret store, there is the official blog article from Microsoft, which is here. And in the script, there is a note on a blog post I wrote. So PowerShell Secrets Management Part 1 Introduction, where you can learn how the secrets module is set up, what are the ideas behind, how the whole thing works, and this should give you a little overview on the idea and the architecture. Okay, so I have a different environment for the real communication. I'm closing my Linux environment here and go into my PowerShell core environment. So this is also a 7.1.4, the current PowerShell, but it's running on Windows. There is the SEPPmail API module installed as well. And if I do a get SMA configuration, there is one configuration which is actually working. It is my version 12 test environment. We're listening on port 8445. I don't have a valid certificate, so skip certificate check is set to true. And it's my only one, so my active and my true environment. And the first steps for this is stored in this first step Powershell script. What I would highly recommend you is that you do a test SMA configuration. This commandlet checks if the hostname is resolvable, if we can ping it on this port, and if we can get basic set of data. So just mark it and then run it from your console, and it will tell you either I can't resolve it or I can't ping it on this port. And if you get this, everything is great, you have access and the network configuration works. To figure out what you can do with the API, it's a good idea to figure out which commandlets are available. If you can use, so if you want to see all the commandlets, we do a get command, we specify the module and do SEPPmail API. These are all the commandlets, let's say all the functions, with a couple of aliases. So this is quite a bunch of commands. So if you want to figure out just specific parts of it, we filter it down to all the stuff with users. And here we have 5 commands. So we have find, get for getting a single one, new to create a new user, remove users, or change, in this case, set users. So we're going to use the find command to figure out what kind of users are available on this box. So in this case, you see I have created some demo users, and if we look at our SEPPmail appliance into the users area, you see all those users here and the admin account. We can also see, I use the list command, but we can also use the find SMA without list command, so I get all the properties of all the users. Be careful with this. If you have a lot of users on your machine, this may take a while. If you just want to have the first one, we do the same command, but just stop the pipeline after number 1. And so this is like a user looks like. It tells us the creation parameters, so by whom and what and date, which customer it is in, and if it has a licenses like encrypt or sign, and so on. And now you can start and do all the PowerShell magic like select. You could do filtering with where, you can do for each, and all that pipeline magic. But if you're with your environment at this step, the experimentation part starts, so you can try all the things with group management, webmail users, and you are on a good path, and your API works, and the PowerShell module works as well with your environment. So I hope this was sufficient. So the usage examples are with users, so we've done with that already. If you want to have more information about usage, and we are going to update this frequently, just go to the GitHub repository and see some examples. And with that, I hope you enjoyed the how-to video. I wish you good luck with your own first steps with the SEPPmail API PowerShell module, and give us some feedback via our support channel. We want to make the module better and better and add improvements. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.